people are not as concerned about the performance of the obligations under the contract. People are not worried about a willful default by the off-taker. They tend to worry about how do we manage these issues. And over the last 18 months, probably 2 years, but in particular the last 18 months, and then probably the peak of that was the conference in Sharm el-Sheikh. We've seen GCC countries come in a very big way, and a massive show of support. I mean, I was in the room when the announcements were made. I think it started off with the Emir of Kuwait, and then followed on by Saudi Arabia and the UAE. It just, people could not believe the numbers, right? It was the outpouring of support. And as strong as, if not stronger than the actual numbers, was what people said about Egypt. So I think that what people are expecting and hoping for is that the aid that's come in from the GCC, whether it's in the form of central bank deposits or grants or help with fuel supply, will help Egypt bridge the period, this tough period it's in, until it gets to a situation where it solves its balance of payment problem. And I think that what you're probably likely to see is a missing piece in the transition, which is the elections for parliament. That's important for a number of reasons. I think it's important for buy-in to any kind of long-term program, and I think international institutions like the IMF will want to see a plan that has been reviewed by a parliament and signed off on. But also it's interesting because from a legal perspective, under the Constitution, the President currently has legislative authority, and the President has been using that for things like the new investment law, as Chris mentioned. But what the Constitution also says is when a new parliament is elected, it has to ratify every piece of legislation that the President passed. So for people to really have the full comfort and really to come in a big way, like Emmanuel said, getting these buy-in from banks, the amount of money that you need, I think that's a critical piece that has to fall into place. So you'll find a lot of GCC flows into Egypt in many ways, including investments. And obviously, yes, I can certainly speak to that better than I can. And we've been involved in a number of transactions. Actis, recently, just looking at on the capital market side, 2 very successful IPOs in Egypt. One was 14% oversubscribed, one I believe was 14 times oversubscribed, 11 times oversubscribed, with a lot of foreign investors. So people I think are rooting for Egypt. They're hoping to get there, and there's a lot of momentum. Last point on the legal infrastructure, legal frameworks. Well, Egypt's done an IPP. CP was what, 1999? Maybe it was not close. It was 15 years ago. So it's been in place. People have been, and there have been multiple changes in ownership, and there's never been any issues in payment. I think it's a question. It's been a while since an Egyptian IPP has been to market and to see sort of the bankability. And each, the 3 deals were gas-fired. Now you're looking at, what are you going to do for potential coal-fired projects? It has a different set of issues. What are you going to do on the renewables? So I think you're going to see some tweaking of that, but I don't think people are expecting a massive issue beyond the main issues I mentioned, which are really issues of if it's gas-fired or coal-fired, how do you get feedstock supply security in terms of what do you do about the convertibility? I think those are the biggest issues people talk about.
Yeah, now convertibility, I think we'll talk about this a little bit later on. So thank you very much, Marwan. It's quite exciting. Yeah, I think, by the way, the Egyptian stock market was, if not the top performing stock markets worldwide last year. And this is also a good gauge for the success and the trust of investors on this stabilization of the country. Well, Mohamed, being managing director of Kalar Holding, I think you have an impressive CV, mainly in the gas sector. Egypt, I think, was long a gas exporter, has almost become an importer of gas. Quite some challenges ahead. Also now to rebuild the trust of the big players here, to conduct necessary investments, to boost the E&P side. How do you see the oil and gas sector, and how do you see the opportunities also to boost the generation side in the years to come? And the emergency program, I think, is very important also to comment about.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all the panelists for speaking about renewable, because I think in Egypt we are delaying, not a little bit, for a long time, we are playing to mix the energy. And I think this is the main problem that Egypt had and suffering now, but we are passing this opportunity by diversifying the different source of energy. Due to the fact that Egypt was still producing oil and gas, and Egypt has good reserves from the oil and gas point of view, but our utilizing for these resources was not good. We are depending completely in Egypt on oil and gas as a primary energy in all our consumption needs. I'll give you examples. For electricity, for example, Egypt is dependent on oil and gas by almost 92% of its electricity. In summer, this percentage reached almost about 95–96%. Due to the fact that the price of gas and fuel oil from EGPC, the entity responsible for that, to electricity, was with very low price. It was 2 years ago, was 85 cents per million. This restricting all the plants for electricity to generate electricity from different sources. Because when we are speaking about renewable, they are saying it is very expensive. Why it is very expensive? Because the fuel as feed for this plant is very cheap. But at the end, the country is subsidizing that, and the country is losing the opportunity for using gas, for example, for adding value projects in petrochemical. Then, the move for the government to mix the energy, not only for electricity, but for all users, by rectifying the price of gas and fuel oil to the industry, for example. When the government increased the price for cementing consumption for gas to reach $8, it became economically for the cement to change their system in order to receive coal and alternative fuel, in order to be able to have a competitive price, which is good for the country, good for the industry, directing the gas for the needs of and utilizing the gas for adding the value project for the economy of the country. At the time being, in electricity, we are depending, and they have first priority in order to avoid any shutoffs. They have first priority to get and receive gas and fuel oil. But within a couple, 3 years, the renewable will be in operation, reducing the OPEX cost, reducing the fuel that Egypt is importing a lot, improving the reserves of the central bank because we are reducing the bill for importation, and I think this will support the country for repayment of the IPP, as Marwan and Chris was speaking about. The mix of energy. Egypt is a big country. It is 90 million population with a growth of 2.5%. My expectation for the demand at 2030 is almost 120 gigawatt. This, of course, means a lot of energy sources. Renewable will play the big role for that. By this, I think Egypt could utilize its reserves of the production of gas to increase its downstream industry, especially in the petrol. Regarding the oil, it is the same, because Egypt's current production for oil and gas is almost about 78 million ton oil equivalent a year. And its consumption is exceeding that. Then I think when Egypt will reach the balance and then have the capability to export its resources. This will improve completely without affecting the development of this country. And I think this is the future that all of us looking, and the government is working for achieving this target.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Very interesting, I think, for us to hear all of these points out of first hand. Well, yes, the Aqua Power is certainly the leading IPP in the MENA region, coming out of conventional and desalination, but obviously a very prominent player, even though new to renewable energies. But I think building the CSP plant in Morocco, having been awarded the DIVA tender, which was doubled from 100 to 200 megawatts, with the lowest world record price, 5.85 US cents per kilowatt hour for 25 years for a solar PV plant here in the region. And I think my company, Building Energy, is shortlisted for Komombo. Aqua Power is shortlisted. You're working on government-to-government projects together also with Mazda on the renewable side, but also as Eddie outlined, Aqua Power is obviously heavily involved in the new conventional plants. So how do you see, as an IPP investor, the framework, the opportunities evolving now, and how do you see the next few years develop? Will the 40,000 megawatts materialize with the current ingredients, or is it more kind of a wishful thinking?
Since 2009, when Ecuador decided to go outside Saudi Arabia, Egypt was selected as one of the target countries for obvious reasons. It is the largest populous country, and also that their profile for supply and demand, it means always they need to have continuous growth. So the need for long-term development in the electricity industry, you can see it for the long term, 30, 40 years. And we, at that time, we participated in any opportunity available in the market, realizing that the Egyptians were having the experience on the business model. So we were very comfortable, even during the bad days. Today, we see the difference on the political will. We see the message that they want to have a remarkable economical and social development, which is, it means we want to do through the infrastructure development, which will require huge investment in energy. So we look to Egypt today as an opportunity. We see that now the action is confusing for many people. When we look to the long-term plan, they are talking about the rifles, they are talking about the fuel mix, they are talking about the plan, maybe 55% of nuclear and renewable, and 45% of oil and gas, including coal. The mix for us is right. The decision is taken today. Based on that direction, we also have seen that they have delivered their promises as a good sign. For example, they have issues in the security of supply. They needed to do emergency projects. They have done it. So they have contracted in time. The schedule was unrealistic, but look at that, they are delivering the required power during this summer. They need to make a decision to have large initiatives materialize. They were there. So nearly what we are doing today is we work with the government to submit their own projects. So they are today on the table. I think they have good price. I think that if they complete the evaluation and they make their work, we are in a position to make a financial close during this year, which is a good sign for the market. proud of taking the opportunity to make that happen. We want to bring the confidence. We also signed with them bilateral agreements with Costa and IFC to undertake development for another 2,000 megawatt combined cycle. An offer was submitted and exceeded better than I hoped. It was already last week. So we are also committed to make the management close during this year. And we have completed the feasibility study for 200 megawatt solar PV. We are now preparing the offer of the complete 1,500 megawatt. We are also submitting an offer in 2 months for 500 megawatt one. And all this shows that partners leave involved and the government is very interested in the site and located. So it brings a lot of confidence. Of course, there are many challenges, we are aware of the challenges, but we are marching to be there. We also have signed a separate MOU directly with them to develop up to 4,000 megawatt for government. So for us, by participating in all these initiatives, we believe that it's a great opportunity. We are also part of the feeding dialogue. We have quite the site.
Really good. So thank you. Yes, it's nice to hear. So until now, I hear only positive voices. So I think we should also talk, obviously, a little bit about the issues we have to work on to be resolved. Well, let's talk a little bit about the renewables program. So, well, I've been involved personally in Egypt in the power sector since 2010. So I saw the change of 3 difficult years during the revolution. Very difficult, very painful, but I'm personally stunned about the dramatic change since last year. So last summer, everybody was talking about Komombo. We had the steering committee, the 200 PO tender in Upper Egypt, promising a solar project is still on, but then all of a sudden this feed-in tariff came up. So let me give you a little bit of background on this. So obviously there has been talk throughout summer, and for the parties involved knew that something was in the air on the feed-in tariff, but only in September the Ministry of Finance delayed it a little bit, but then it was announced. So the feed-in tariff, obviously also with the amount for the large projects, 14.3 US cents per kilowatt hour, a relatively high tariff. Well, this was announced in September last year. In November, a relatively swift qualification process, so not pre-qualification, qualification process was kicked off. So actually, one level was jumped. So the whole process was extremely fast, with this urgency, obviously, to proceed. Egypt is a lane mover, that's very clear, renewable energy, but it's fantastic to see how this is now embraced. So November qualification, then end of January, all developers here, Aqua Power, Lekela, Building Energy, we received the qualification letters with the allotments, the amounts, let's say the capacity authorized under the feed-in tariff. And since end January, there was also dramatic progress. So I think, I also had the privilege working very closely with the government representative. Unfortunately, they're actually all in Germany, or Dr. Sofkis in Milan today, ETC, the other, the minister wasn't able, unfortunately, to attend this panel, overlapping with other activities, but my personal experience was that it is a very, very professional, fruitful cooperation, over-delivery, exceeding expectations. The plan is very well integrated with international advisors appointed. I think there's a very good plan on the grid, for example. The grid is obviously always the crucial factor. So Egypt is working with EDF and SGCC on grid issues. So the whole program, I think, is very well thought through. Grid, the substation, the tender was completed, the site is allocated, be permitted, and the project agreement were actually published at the end of March. We had a huge round of comments on the 5 project agreements, the PPA, the TCA and the other agreements. The cost sharing agreement the developers need to sign, because also one factor is that the bar is very high of the project, of the renewable energy program. So the developers are asked to put for 50 megawatt solar or 50 megawatt wind project approximately 1 million upfront cash and guarantee to establish a special purpose vehicle and to capitalize the company with a minimum amount, and also to provide, let's call it a land bond, to make sure that the proposal is really serious, and the whole development phase will require additional upfront payments to make sure that in parallel the grid connection will be secured and all of these things. So we also, as Building Energy, signed actually just a few days ago one of the last agreements on the land. So we were lucky to get one of the last plots of lands. We are developing 250 megawatt solar PV projects, and it was quite remarkable, this final rush. So the number, just to tell you, originally of companies applying only for solar, not for wind, was more than 180 during the qualification process. Then it came down to, I think, 68, 69 qualified parties, and now the number of developers, I think, is a little bit more than 20 having signed the land agreement, and I think it will be a relatively focused group of probably less than 20 of the Tier 1 international developers working on this project and bringing it to financial close. So we believe that we can achieve financial close somewhere between Q1 and Q2 next year, bringing the plants to operation in 2016 summer. So Egypt can, in our view, realistically be the leader, even being a late mover in solar and wind energy in 2 years from now in the whole MENA region. And this is a fantastic opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about the issues. I think everybody talks about the currency issue. There's obviously several dimensions. We are talking not only about foreign exchange risk in general, we are talking first of all about convertibility, because even though the tariff is linked in US dollars, it is paid in Egyptian pounds. So there's a challenge to have sufficient US dollars to pay back the project finance on a monthly basis. But then obviously at a later stage, the question on how to repatriate the dividend comes up. So I would maybe like to start first with the developers, Chris and Yassi, to comment on this, and then the lender's view. I think with Emmanuel would be very interesting to see whether the lenders are getting comfortable with this situation. So Chris, would you like to start?
Yeah, okay, good, thank you. Yeah, from a developer's perspective, clearly this is the one outstanding big issue that still needs to be resolved. We do understand that the government is working on it. It's clear, in my view, that it needs to be resolved before any of these projects, the FIT projects, can go into closing. Of course, the BO project is different, and it's paid in US dollars, so that's not an issue there. But for the FIT project, it's a major issue. And I think, Cornelius, you mentioned that we have tried